Ronald Harwood, you were engaged to write a screenplay for this remarkable story, but did you know much about Szpilman before?
I'd never heard of him, to my shame. What happened was that my agent telephoned and said that Roman Polanski had called, and would I read a book called The Pianist? And I'd never heard of it, and it was sent to me, and I read it in one sitting. I couldn't put it down. And I remember my wife calling and saying, "Are you coming in for supper tonight?" And I then got in touch with Polanski the next day and said I'd love to do it. I thought it was a most compelling and wonderful story, and that's how that began.
I'm interested that you, in the list of credits of films that get made, Taking Sides appears soon before this.
This was the reason he got in touch with me. Taking Sides was done in Paris in a French production, a very, very marvellous production, which ran for a year in Paris, and Polanski went to see it. And he said, afterwards, I thought to myself, since it's about Nazis and music, this guy might be the right man to write The Pianist. And I've always said to him, Roman, you're so unimaginative. Anyway, that's what happened, and that's how he got in touch with me. That's why he got in touch with me.
Had you known him before?
I met him once briefly in, of all places, Moscow. I was doing some research, he was doing some research, and we met very briefly at breakfast. And he very kindly said he was a fan of a film of mine based on a play of mine called The Dresser. And I was a great fan of his, obviously, most people are. And that's the only time I met him, was really to shake hands over breakfast.
So, I mean, one of the few things, if anyone knows anything about Polanski, it's his incredible wartime experience. So you must have been well aware how personal this story would have been for him.
Well, it was the most helpful part of the corrections. After I delivered the first draft, we spent 5 weeks together in France in a house he'd rented, and his memory, he was a small boy when he was in the Krakow ghetto. I think he got out when he was 5 or 6, he escaped. But he has a remarkable visual memory, and when stuff came through to us about designs, because the film was being prepared, he would correct, for example, the belts and the trousers and the boots of German officers. Get them absolutely right, because that's what he remembers. He was a little boy, and that's what he saw. And he'd sometimes say, let's do what happened to me. But he didn't talk about his experiences in any detail, and I've never heard him discuss those experiences, ever.
There was one other detail I think he volunteered, which in a way contradicts the detail of Szpilman's account, when he's taken from the train that's being sent to the concentration camps, and the man says, run.
Right, well, that was a marvellous moment. I just took it, when I did my first draft, I just took it from the book. That's what happens in the book. The man says, run. And when Roman and I came to that scene, we were correcting all the stuff, he said, let's do what happened to me. And when he was pushed out under the wires of the Krakow ghetto, he started to run, and the man who'd helped him said, don't run, walk. And you see, I would never have been able to invent that. It would just not have occurred to me. And of course, the walking didn't draw attention to the little boy or to Szpilman in the movie.
Did you get a sense at the time that this was in any way cathartic for him as an experience?
Oh, absolutely. I think the shooting of it was, not so much my part, but when he came to shoot the big scene in the square where the Jews are waiting to be deported, I think he was quite upset. My wife and I were with him on those couple of days, and he was constantly in motion and tense. I think it reminded him of things. You know, he was offered Schindler's List by Spielberg originally, and he turned it down because he knew most of the survivors from the Krakow ghetto, which is what Schindler's List is about. Our film was about the Warsaw ghetto, and it was one removed, and he could do it with a little bit more objectivity than he would have found doing Schindler's List. Yes, I think it was cathartic.
In the process of adapting the book, because the book I think is not very much like a novel as I understand it, more like a journal.
Yes, it's a diary of a kind, yes.
So was he very hands-on with you and the way he wanted it to take particular directions and the dramatic journey, I suppose, of the character?
He wasn't. He was hands-on when we came to finalising what he wanted to shoot. That is to say, what you saw on the screen, he was very specific and brilliant about. But he let me have the general narrative run and what the characters said. He would leave what the characterization of the people, which are very under-characterized in the book, the family. I had to invent that, and he left that to me entirely. But when it came to what he wanted to see, he was very specific.
When a writer invents those details, such as the family, then, do you inevitably draw upon your own family, people you know, people you've been influenced by or loved?
I think you try to enter the world that you're writing about. And yes, I suppose you draw on people. I don't think I did in that, because I have not known, thank God, people in such extreme situations. But when people are being led to their death, you have to imagine, you have to try and enter that world, and that's what I did, I think.
I mean, in that sense, it must be odd for people on the ground, say in the Warsaw district that the film shot in, to see Nazis, albeit actors playing Nazis, walking those streets again. It must be an incredible...
Well, I wasn't there when the Nazis walked the street, but I have done a film many, many years ago in Prague, where we had Nazi flags, and people were absolutely terrified when they saw them out of the windows. I think in Warsaw it was not quite so acute, because we rebuilt. Those places don't exist anymore, so we reconstructed the square and decked it out as a place. So I don't know. There were a lot of Poles used as extras, of course, as German soldiers. And Roman told me that on the night they finished, they all went and had a party. And these guys who'd been Nazi officers and stern were wearing jeans and T-shirts and New York City across there. He said it was weird. And they didn't seem to react to playing Nazis in an unpleasant way.
Did the theme that comes out strongly from the film of the fact that there are good Germans and bad Germans, there are good Jews and bad Jews, good Poles, bad Poles, was that very much redolent of the book?
It's less redolent of the book, but that's a decision Roman and I took jointly, that we would be, in a way, as fair as we could be. You can't be entirely fair in the situation, but we decided that to humanize all parties, which is to say, make them good and bad, was what our task was. And we came in for some stick, especially from Holocaust survivors and children of Holocaust survivors, who thought we'd made the Germans perhaps too sympathetic. But of course a German saved his life. The German officer saves his life.
Absolutely. The recreation of some of the set-piece scenes, I always think a picture tells 1,000 words sometimes, and you can write something in a novel and yet see a cityscape that's absolutely shattered by many years of war, such as is depicted in the film, and that just takes your breath away.
Well, it was an amazing... firstly, there were two amazing miracles that happened on the shooting of The Pianist. One was we needed snow, and it was not coming. There was no snow about. And so they were going to send off for fake snow. And on the morning they were to shoot that scene, it snowed. So we had snow. And they were looking for a village or some street that could be blown up or look like a blown up part of the city. And they went all over Europe trying to find, they couldn't find anywhere. And we were filming in Berlin, in the studios in Berlin, and the producer, Robert Ben Musa, was talking, I think, to the mayor of Berlin, and he said, well, we've got Soviet barracks that we're going to blow up. Blow them up. And that's where those were shot. So I don't know what the order of event was. I wasn't there. But I don't know if they blew up the barracks and then shot, or if they were already blown up. But that's what we did. And it's terrifically effective. That shot where you come up above Szpilman and you see the deserted city.
Were you on set much during the principal photography?
Not a lot. I find it terribly boring. Only two people know what's going on, the director and the director of photography. And the writer certainly doesn't know what's going on and isn't told. So apart from being with Roman, which I like very much, I enjoy his company and he likes me being there and we have chats and laughs, I don't really like going on a set.
You weren't called upon for extensive rewrites on the
day?
day?
You won't have it. He won't have it, nor will I. I'd hate it. In fact, he called me up on several occasions saying they want to change these lines. I said, don't let them. He said, that's what I said. I mean, he's the only director I've ever known who does that. But once he's got the script, he's very attached to it, and that's what he wants.
Is that, do you think, a consequence of his training, perhaps, his generation?
His theatre background, I think. He believes in the text, and he's very loyal to it, and that's terrific from the writer's point of view. I mean, it's wonderful. Rare, very rare.
When you were writing the screenplay, I'm sure your mind must have gone into who exactly he's going to cast in this lead role. The man who's on screen almost the entire film and changes so...
I don't think of it while I'm writing. The moment I was finished, I thought, I wonder how we're going to cast this. And Roman thought about a lot of people and perhaps saw some. And then he saw Adrian Brody in a war film, a Vietnam War film, a Yellow Jacket.
Thin Red Line.
Was it The Thin Red Line? Yes.
Second World War.
And he liked the look of him a lot, and he knew he could play the piano a bit. That was a help. He can't play Chopin's concerto at all, but he could play enough of little things to fake it. And he saw Adrian, liked him, and that's how that came about.
Because that must be an odd experience for you. You're immersed in this material. You hand the script over, obviously, to a filmmaker you trust, and then you see the work of the cinematographer, the production designer, costume designer, and actors. To see the finished film, when did you?
Well, it's always a shock. Not the casting. I don't actually imagine the physical shape of a character. I imagine the inner workings, the inner life. So it's not a shock what he looks like. But what is a shock is when you've imagined a scene from a certain angle, and the director shoots it from quite the opposite angle, further away or closer or whatever it is, and that's disturbing. Then your memory of what you thought disappears, and all you remember is what the director's done. That's what happens to me. I don't know if it's true of all writers, but it's my experience.
So when did you first see a cut of the whole movie?
Quite early. I saw a rough cut, very, very early, because nowadays with those machines they call in scenes that they've cut, and there were some time-lapse things that Roman asked me to go over to Paris and have a look at. Quite early. I don't remember exactly the process, but I saw several rough cuts before, and the finesse that was given as he refined it.
And was the finished thing very different from the original concept that you and he had discussed?
No. No, that's why he sticks so closely to the screenplay. He gets what he originally envisaged. Of course it changes. I mean, there's things that change, but not much.
I mean, are there particular details that leading actors bring to it, not through perhaps what they say, but the way they say it or the things that they do?
Well, Roman's very strict about how people say and the inflections. He's inclined to be very straitjacketing about those things. But in Adrian Brody's case, I think because he'd been starved by Polanski to get this thin look, there came into Adrian's performance a real hunger, not so much for food, but just for enjoying yourself, for pleasure, which is very apparent, I think, in the performance. And that was a physical and emotional quality that Adrian brought to a spectacular performance, I think.
Because
sorry, yeah.
No, it's absolutely true. But there are so many moments when what is not said is almost as important. I mean, he goes to this safe apartment, so he thinks, and it is his haven for a while. And there's a piano there, but he can't play it.
And he plays with his hands above the piano. There's actually not an awful lot of dialogue in the film. We tried to. Because he's alone in the city. Right at the beginning, I said to Roman, one thing we must not do is have a voiceover or invent a companion to whom he can speak, because that would be so contrary to the nature of the story. So we tried to preserve that, and I think the scenes where nothing is said, where you have the loneliness of the man demonstrated and dramatised, were rather effective.
Where nothing's said, is a lot of the stage direction coming from you and your description of the screenplay?
Yeah.
It's not a question of war breaks out.
Oh, I don't do that. Or cut to the chase. No, I don't do that. No, I mean, what you must never do in a screenplay, this is just my view, I don't know if others think this, is you must never say, he's thinking, how lonely am I? You can only describe in a screenplay what you can see on the screen. Otherwise it's a cheat. He says he's desperately in love with her. How do you know? So those are the things you have to preserve, and I'm a playwright by training, as it were, all my life, and so I know about those things a little.
What about the sense of responsibility you must surely have felt that you are not only depicting the life of a real man, but a man whose family is still alive?
Well, I have a saying, you have to be true to truth. And that's your responsibility, that's one's responsibility. I took the book to be the truth. That's Szpilman's account of what happened. I take it to be absolutely honest. And given the historical research you do round that and the amount of archive we saw of the Warsaw Ghetto and the terrible film that's never been shown to the public, we had 3 days of that, Roman and I, then you know what you have to be true to, and you don't distort and you don't manipulate. You simply obey the historical imperative.
This must have been an incredible crucible, if you like, to forge a relationship with the director, because it's terribly intense and very emotional, obviously on a personal level for him. And yet I hear him say in documentaries and so forth that he remembers a lot of laughter with you.
Well, we laughed all the time. We told terrible bad taste jokes about Poles and Jews and Germans and anybody else who came into the frame. And one day there were people looking after his children while we were working in the house. One day we came out at 5:30 when we finished work, and this guy said to Roman, I hear a lot of laughter. Are you two guys writing a comedy? And Roman said, this is the funniest film you'll ever see. Oh, we had a wonderful time, but otherwise you can't deal with the material. If you're going to be depressed and weighed down by it, it would be absolutely intolerable. So you find a way of dealing with it, and our way was to laugh. He's one of the best joke tellers who ever lived, Roman. Marvellous teller of Jewish jokes and Polish jokes and all kinds of jokes.
It was a curious thing. I mean, a race of people who've suffered as much as the Jews, and yet they're known for their sense of humour above all else.
It's a very curious sense of humour, though. It's always got a twist in the tale, hasn't it?
I suppose this wasn't a twist in the tale for this film, in the sense that it's a Polanski film on this sombre subject, comes out to great acclaim, wins the Palme d'Or at Cannes, and then success at the Oscars. Tell us about the aftermath of the film's release.
Well, I saw it at my wife and I went to see it at a private showing in Paris. And when we came out, I think, no, it wasn't a private showing. It was just the producer, Robert Manusa, Roman, my wife and me. I think it was only the four of us. And we came out, and I knew as the lights went out, I said to Roman, you know, we've done something rather good. He said, yeah, it's good. That was our only reaction, because you can't get overexcited. But I never thought it was going to go into the stratosphere. And then I went down to Cannes, the only time I've ever been to Cannes, which is frightful for writers, because they don't know what writers do and don't care. And I left before the Palme d'Or was announced. I left on the Saturday afternoon. I think it's announced on Sunday. I came back. And by the time I'd come back home, my wife said, the film's won the Palme d'Or. Somebody had phoned her from Cannes. So that was that. And then the Oscar nominations came out, and we had, I think, 6 or 7. And then there were the Oscars, and we won 3. And so I was absolutely astonished that we'd gone into that world. I mean, you can make a good quality film and not be acknowledged at all. And we had this wonderful acknowledgement worldwide, so it was very rewarding. But I never imagined that would happen. I don't think Roman did either.
You worked with him subsequently, of course, on Oliver Twist.
I did.
A film, obviously, with not so much of a personal connection for him. But did you see us?
I'm not sure that's true. But go on. Ask your. Sorry.
Well, I was going to ask you to compare the experience of working with him. Was he just as driven to tell that story?
Absolutely. Oh yes, he's always driven. I mean, once Roman commits, you have his life. That's his life. But I think there was something very personal in Oliver Twist. The boy, the outcast child, taken up, survives. Roman's life is about survival, and I think he found a close connection. Not many people went to see the film because I think it was a sort of cultural miscalculation on our part. But I think Roman said to me, in 10 years' time, people will say this is a classic.
What about now, when you look back on a great many notable films in your own canon, your own CV, where does The Pianist rank?
Oh, very high. I mean, look at the rewards I got from it. So success is bound to spoil one. But I'm very proud of the film. Gosh, I mean, it's a worldwide success, acknowledged as a fine film throughout the world. That's very rare in my experience, however many films I've done.